Hi, everybody. This is Inside My Wallet, episode 9. I'm Amanda Edwards, and we're here with Andrea Kennedy as well. And episode 9 is really talking about finding good advisors and the roadmap for that, and things to look out for, hopefully, when we start this part of our journey. I'm going to hand over to Andrea to get us into it all.
Okay, so I will say up front that I could talk about this for 3 days, and this might be a 20-minute monologue. So just jump in if I don't stop for a question. So I'm going to read something to the audience that this is a headline that came over the news, and there is a reason I want to read this. This is a very typical thing I hear from people. I see it online. And it really kind of goes to the heart of questions of the kinds of people that can advise us. So here's what the headline says. They all promise to help, that's in quotes, but no financial advisor seems to offer what I need. I have 2 retirement accounts, an investment account, and some real estate. And I want a one-time plan for managing my money. So this person is clearly what we would call a self-directed investor. They don't want other people managing their money. They want to manage their own money, but they kind of want a map. They probably want tax advice. They still want certain advice, but they kind of want a roadmap. Here's where they are. Here's where they're going. How do I get to that place? Retirement, estate planning. How do I leave money for my heirs? How do I pay for college? It's kind of this roadmap that he wants. This is a financial plan. And the best people to do a financial plan are certified financial planners. I am one. It's one of the few areas of finance, I think, that is incredibly helpful and effective for people who are not in the world of finance, who are not living finance day to day. Advisors really don't do financial plans, or they'll do one for free in order to get another type of business from you. And that will be either to sell you a financial product or to get your assets under management, which is another way of saying, give me your money, I'll invest it for you for a fee, okay? If you talk to people who are over 40 years old, a lot of people are doing this with advisors. They're paying some person, some company, 1% or 1.5%, sometimes more, to invest their money for them. And every year they have to pay that money. And every year that comes out of your returns. And I'll get to how that impacts your returns shortly. In other cases, they're going to be sold products. Sometimes people are doing a combination of these things. And that's how the finance industry makes money. Operative word being financial services industry. It is an industry, and it's not for profit. This is not the 70s anymore, where banks kind of just did loans or they set up checking accounts. Of course, they do that too. But there's all these players, and everybody needs to make money, right? And that's not all bad, and it doesn't mean that people are corrupt or anything like that. It just means you have to be incredibly aware of what you want before you start talking to advisors, okay? You've got to go in. It's like going into a grocery store. You don't go into a grocery store and say, what do I want? And then not ask how much it costs. You have to kind of know what you want, and you have to really understand all of the fees involved, because even if the percentage point seems small, and I will give you an example at the end of this, they are very, very negatively impactful to your long-term returns, okay? So if you're under 40 years old, maybe you are working with a robo-advisor, or you are investing money yourself, your long-term returns are going to be better if you are doing that, and you're going about it in a very simple, methodical, not overthinking it way of investing your money. Your returns are actually going to be better than if you have somebody in between you and your money who's constantly shuffling your money around, right? And there's a lot of versions of people. Again, I don't want to act like everyone in the industry is bad, but there's a lot of, you have to understand, people are just trying to build their own practices and make money for themselves. And the advisor is going to be paid whether your investment portfolio goes up or down, whether they do your job, the job they're supposed to do or not, whether they answer your phone calls. But having an advisor invest your money is very different than someone who's just going to build a plan for you and then have you invest your money, right? And I do see this kind of 40 years old, people under 40 are handling their money in a way very differently. And I would say, frankly, better than people who are over 40 and who've used a lot of advisory services and who really aren't aware of the impact on their long-term returns. So that's kind of where I want to start. Understand what you want before you get in. don't overcomplicate something. If you just want a bank account, go in and get a bank account. Don't come out with 3 financial products, right?
Yeah.
Ask details about how much whatever it is costs and read the fine print. Most people aren't going to tell you what's in the fine print, okay? Most people are going to let it kind of just go over here, right? Slide. Because the fine print involves usually more fees, or it involves some level of not being fully responsible for whatever they've told you, orally. A lot of times when I get clients, they already have bankers, they already have advisors. So why are they hiring somebody like me? Well, they don't understand what their bankers or advisors are saying. They're being talked down to. They're being sold products they don't really need, or that are very complicated and that are far outside the realm of what, is really necessary. So there's a lot of reasons somebody brings in a third party like me, and it's to kind of give them the layman's take on what's going on. So my advice for people who, wait, first I have to ask, is there anything that I've said that you think isn't clear, or that I...
No, I think it's clear. I mean, I think you're, just to understand that you're really saying that if someone wants to get an independent idea of their finances and where they want to go, they have to go to an independent financial advisor. I mean,
well, I would know, because a lot of people call, so this is the other thing, there's a lot of titles.
Yes.
You can be an independent financial advisor and actually not do a financial plan, right?
Yes.
You can work for a bank and actually do so I would take independent is a good start, because it means you're not representing one company and the funds associated with one company. Like if I go to bank X, they might, or an insurance company, they'll sell me the funds that they're making money off of. So there's a conflict of interest. But independent doesn't mean they're necessarily going to charge you the best fees, right? This is about keeping your fee base low. And if they're selling you actively managed funds, and again, let me just get into the fees so it's very clear. Most people are going to say, oh, you get 7 or 8% return. Well, the person who's going to manage your money is going to take a percentage. If it's an actively managed funds, there goes another percentage. So we're now down to 6% probably, or even 5.5%. Once you factor in inflation, and now we've got a lot more inflation, so you're down to a 5.5% return, take away 3% of your purchasing power, your actual return is like 2%. And I'm going to hold up this page in my book. It's page 308. And you can find this in anyone who's written a good book about investing. They will show you that the same money, and sorry, this isn't easy to read, but I'll put it up on my website. If you take the same $100,000, if you invest it at 8% for 30 years, and the fees coming out are only 1%, you make almost $800,000 in the end. If there's only a 2% difference, or you're charged 3%, you're walking away with only $400,000.
Yeah.
So the
Wow.
tiny percentages and understanding what's in the contract, what you're actually investing in, the fees associated to that, people usually really don't get it until 30 years later. They don't have anywhere near the amount of money that they thought they had. Okay.
Yeah.
So my message is, it's not just what someone calls themselves, it's what you are contracting to, right?
Yeah.
If you're giving someone the money to invest, you have to know the fees, and those people have to spell it out for you. People get very irritated when I talk about this, because they actually don't want to know, and they don't want to look into it. And if you have a contract with an insurance company, with a bank, with an advisor, go look at what you're being charged and ask them. And if they cannot explain it directly, that might be bad news, but at least you know, right? On the other hand, there are people who you can look up what I'm saying online. What I'm saying isn't a big secret. You can look up fees, and people talk about fees all the time, and there's a reason for what I'm explaining. But you can find people who will happily tell you, I only charge 1%. We use low cost funds. We invest this way because we know over the long term it gives you a better return. There are people who are very good and very honest, and who are very much on the right side of this.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you have to look for. Not really a title, not just a name, not just a this or that, but to look at what you're actually required to pay, and what you're contracted to do as a client. Yeah.
I think I'm just trying to put myself in the position of somebody that is like at zero now. They did their cash flow, they did their balance sheet. Maybe they do have something with somebody, but now they go, no, I want to take ownership of it.
Yes.
I mean, the first thing is, you talked about a plan. I mean, ideally, is it then you're paying somebody for a plan so that it's not then linked to any products? Is that the
Right.
ideal scenario to get your
So,
own financial plan?
right. So I think, so there's a couple of different questions in there. If you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of money and you can't even really pay for a financial plan, just find a way to get your savings invested automatically, consistently. So I'll just say in the United States, and we're not completely unusual, it's probably a little bit better here. We have platforms, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard. You can link your bank account with an investment portfolio, and every month, and very low fees. And I don't mean 1%, I mean 0.01%, 0.04%. We're talking about super rock bottom fees. And your money will automatically, as you're saving it, get deducted. And that's what a young person should be doing with their money. Okay. Mm-hmm. The other inexpensive version of that is you have a bit of savings and you want to go onto one of those platforms and choose your own investments. And people will help you figure out, and it's usually a pretty AI-driven experience with intelligent portfolios. And those will all be low cost. For someone with not a lot of savings who wants to get started, start there, okay? Mm. You can go online and do somewhere online, you can find a very simple rudimentary, if I invest $100 a month for the next 30 years, this is how much you're gonna save, right? So you can find all of that stuff online. As things become more complicated, like the one I introduced this session on, I've got real estate, I've got this, I've got that, I've got, I want to know how to be most tax efficient. I want to do a bit of estate planning. To me, that is when you use a financial planner, and a certified financial planner who's acting as a fiduciary, because that person, the word fiduciary means they're working on your behalf. You will pay them a fee. The fees can range from $500 to $5,000 or more, depending on how complicated this is. I think every adult, particularly if you have investments and savings, you're paying taxes and you've got kids and planning, and everyone should do a financial plan once. It tells you how to get from here in your life to there, right? And you can revisit it every 5 years.
So money well spent.
Yes, it's a roadmap for your family. It's something that you can use to communicate and explain also what you're doing with a partner or, kids or whatever, adult children. So I think there is absolutely, I think everyone on earth should get a financial plan done, for sure, at least once. And then the last piece of this is people who really don't want to invest their own money. And of course, there are people like that. They're busy. It's just not something they want to deal with. Perfectly fine. Those people are the ones where I'm talking about the fees. You have to know what those people are doing with your money. And you cannot be paying them because you think they can predict the future. No one has a crystal ball. No one can predict every geopolitical event. Warren Buffett gets it wrong sometimes. So this guy or girl who's, woman who's investing your money is not going to get it right all the time. You're paying them so that they, to have an honest relationship, so that they invest the way that you want and feel comfortable with. And so that they stop you from doing things that are silly and panicking, right? There is something to be said for having people around to help you keep investing through difficult times, So they do play a role, but you have to know what you're getting for that fee that you're going to be paying annually. Okay.
Yeah. And I think another thing that comes out of what you were saying, I don't know whether I'm going to say this, correctly, but and perhaps I found it when I was on my journey and, getting to that part of the financial planning, etc. It is almost though, like you have to look at all these financial advisors like you are talking to a salesperson.
They are. That's their primary role. I mean, people have to understand when you go in, I'd say about 80% of the people who are interfacing first with a retail client, this is finance isn't brain surgery. It's not even a root canal, right? Like a lot of people can get licensed in this. If you can do a bit of math and do some reading, it's not that hard actually. Their job is to onboard you as a client, right?
Yeah.
And the more money you have, the more money they're going to make off of you ultimately, because if you have $10 million to invest as an example, they're going to make 1% of that a year at least, probably more. Right. So, or
so
they're
they
going to sell
are
you,
to a degree salesmen. I mean, they are
almost, I would say 80 to 90%, depending on who you first interact with is a salesperson. Yeah.
So then I kind of wonder, then my question is, salespeople tend to have scripts, which they are then relating almost word for word. And
Right.
in the end of the day, if you've got a salesman that, talks quickly, they can, bamboozle you in a way with great words and, oh, this sounds amazing. So then it really is kind of, if you're in front of anybody, it's getting to the nitty gritty. It's asking the questions until you're fully understood exactly what you're getting into and how much it will cost you.
Exactly. And it's also not being bamboozled. It's like, okay, this guy's giving me a pitch and I'm going to listen to it, but then just say, okay, can you write that all down in an email? Can you document what you're saying? All of the details, including the fees, and I'll go back and I'll think about it. The whole point, you have all the power. The client actually does have all the power if you think about it. Yeah. You have all the power. You can just say no. There's a million people selling financial. It's not like there's one person we all have to go to. There's like thousands of people. Every day I get on LinkedIn, I get like 43, wealth advisor jobs, people trying to recruit me and stuff. There's thousands of these people, right?
But do you think that people are uncomfortable sitting in I have to do something, I have to trust somebody, I'm not sure, so I'll just go for it. So you really want them to pull themselves in, right? Into, you have the power, slow down.
If you really need to find someone to invest your money, if you really want someone doing this for you and you're going to pay, you've got to look for them kind of like you're going to look for your partner, right? You've got to kiss a lot of financial frogs to get to someone who's actually going to do all the things I'm talking about. But if you start with a certified financial planner and you start with somebody who's a fiduciary, which means they are working in your best interests, and you start with someone who talks the way that I'm talking about. When a client comes to me, I'm like, here's what it costs. Here's all my fees. Here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's what I can't possibly do for you. Right? Yeah. Someone who just talks this way, right? Then you're probably going down the right road. If it's someone telling you about all their clients and how they're a big deal, or someone who wants to go out and get you drunk, or someone who wants to buy you a bunch of meals, I've had people tell me, oh, they're like a reverend. People throw out all these things to create trust. And I can do a separate piece on financial fraud, and there's a lot of that. In fact, this is an amazing title. I just printed this out today. Former financial advisor who conned his father and other elderly clients out of $3 million. So there's just like this can go on forever, right? And it can go from incompetence to just to fraud, right? But if you find someone who's just wants to do right by you, they will sound a bit like me, right? They're going to say, here are my credentials. Here's what I can do. Here's what I can't do. Here's what our fee range is. And there are more and more people who are like this because we recognize the problems in the industry, and we recognize that there are problems in the industry, but people still have to invest their money, right?
That's it, right? So people still have to do something, and they have to move in this direction, but they don't have to do. I mean, I think there is this preconception as well that, it's complicated because there's so much out there, and people are talking about risk, and I have to diversify, so therefore I have to pick 200 things to get into, which actually isn't true either. I mean, doing like 5 good things properly is better than 200 things badly, I guess, right? So also doing things well, step by step. I understand what I'm doing. I'm going to start with this first, and when I'm confident with that, I can do something else new, and then move until you've got everything under control.
And also, I mean, there was actually another article today that came out. I won't read it, but I'll just kind of I want to say it was one of the big asset manager banks got fined $1.1 million because a doctor sold his business, made $15 million. I'm sure he's a very good doctor, but he doesn't know a lot about personal finance. He gave it to someone, and that advisor gave him the sales pitch, invested the money. And it wasn't that they invested it poorly. They must have invested it very differently than what was really agreed upon in terms of his risk profile or what he wanted. And so he actually sued, and he got $1 million plus back. But and I'm sure this doctor is a very nice man, but he makes the common mistake of, oh, I've got a lot of money, I'm going to go to one of these big names, and oh, they're going to do right by me, because I see this daily, right, through clients, right? So people have to understand that this happens all up and down the food chain. If you don't know what you really want, if you just go in and assume someone's going to do right by your money. Do a little bit of reading, listen to this podcast more than once, send it, frankly, to whoever you're going to hire. And you can start small. This man did not need to give this banker $15 million. He could have said, I'm going to give you
not all eggs
one.
in one basket, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm going to give you one and see how it goes, right?
Yeah.
So I see all the tricks of the trade. Again, I could talk about this for 3 days, and it happens all up and down from kind of people who don't have a lot of money all the way up to very, very high net worth investors who get scammed. I've also seen very good advisors, and they're constantly trying to get their word out. It's just not very sexy, right?
Yeah.
Telling someone that you're going to be doing things slowly and methodically, and here's all the tricks.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound very interesting.
No, people don't like slow, steady, boring, long term, doesn't fit our brains at the moment. But it's the truth, right? You absolutely need slow and steady and boring to get forward.
And to what we were talking about just before we started this, if you really want to sit back and kind of understand how real investors long-term, watch Charlie Munger, watch Warren Buffett, watch some of the particularly recent stuff they've done. They're never excited and jumping up and down. And they're just very methodical, and they've made mistakes and they haven't got it always right, but they're kind of talk this way. That's a very calm, soothing way of, and there's no special secrets in the industry. That's the other thing. A lot of people will say, oh, if you invest with me, I know this one thing that nobody else knows.
Which like there's
true. Somewhere, right?
Yeah,
it's just true. So that's another talk for another podcast. So I think the thing is that you've got all the power by simply saying no, or by simply saying I need to research this, and by simply understanding that you have options, and you have a lot of options, and you should exercise them and not feel overwhelmed. People who are trying to overwhelm you with information really aren't doing their jobs.
Yeah, and you control it. So, because I think people will go, my gosh, that sounds, I knew this subject was complicated, and that's why I don't like talking about investing. We said, from kind of the beginning, all this stuff you have to do. If you do nothing with your money, it's going to lose value. So if you want to work hard to end up with less than what you've got that you're looking at now, you do nothing. So if you've got to do something, then know that you're in control of these conversations, where it goes, how it goes, and you have more than a say than you know. And so to kind of confidently go, as far as your learning goes, that's what I'm understanding for you. Go as far as you're comfortable, and risk as much as you're comfortable as you're growing your pot and as you go and as you grow.
That's right. And so I would say, kind of for the homework, I would say, if you haven't started and you do need to start investing your money, start simply and use a low cost brokerage platform. I will say one that has been in the news, I don't want to mention the name because I don't want this to come back at me, that a lot of young, excited people have been using, and all of those streams were sold on to other investors.
They'll find it if they Google it.
Just use something simple that's been around for a very long period of time, and that's very boring. So that's my first piece of advice. And then I think if you are wanting a plan, then you start looking for a certified financial planner who's a fiduciary in your town, neighborhood, nearby, someone maybe who's recommended by a friend. They will charge you for a plan. Very likely. If they're not going to charge you for a plan, then they very much want to sell you something else, which is the last piece, which is where you actually have someone investing your money kind of the old-fashioned way and charging you consistent fees. And I think if you're stuck in one of these contracts where you're like, oh, I'm stuck in a contract. These are often insurance contracts or some kind of relationship contract with an advisor.
And they could be 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, you're uncomfortable. Really look at it. Even if you've made a mistake, and a lot of people have, getting involved in one of these contracts, if you understand what you did wrong, you can do right, with the rest of your money, right? Mm-hmm. This is not the end of the world. And it probably will give you some return, but it's probably not the most optimal way to get your money really invested.
Okay? And you're a big believer in doing it yourself and going in yourself.
So I am, because again, it might be my generation. So I think this is a very personal decision. I know a lot of people who use advisors who are very happy with their advisors and who like what their advisors have done for them. So I'm not against that. I just think that if this is something you have the time for and the temperament for, then I would say do it on your own.
because you can get
Right?
a bigger return, as you showed at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And there's some good books out there as well. I mean, there's yours and there's others as well that really do give you kind of a helping hand in understanding how to do it yourself.
Right.
So if
I
you do
think,
want to do it, you can go and learn it.
yeah, I think the only downside of books, and I'll say this as an American, is that they're very American investing centric, right? Whereas a
Yes.
lot of people just want to buy real estate and be a landlord. And I think that that's a perfectly fine way to invest and make money if that's what you want to do, right? And again, this is what the difference between a planner and an investment advisor is. I kind of don't care how people invest their money, right?
Yes.
People make money off of stamp collections. You know, I don't have I don't have any skin in this game, right? So some people just want to invest money and become landlords and own real estate. I think that's perfectly fine, or they want to start a business, or they want to do whatever. So I think that my role is to respect what people want to do and help them get there, not to say, oh, you have to invest all of your money in financial markets, right? Which is what
Yes.
many of the books will tell you, which is how many books are constructed, just so people are aware.
Yeah, true. Everyone's got an opinion. That's the truth. Everybody.
Yeah.
But the information is out there. But I think that, yeah, getting that plan is always good, to give you the overview, where you are, where
Right.
you want to go. That's so helpful. You can't under confirm like how helpful that is for somebody,
Yeah.
for their lifetime. I think that is actually very helpful.
I know I can tell you the things that I think have changed, like where clients have come back and said, wow, this changed my life. I think one of them is being able to talk to someone
Yeah.
and have an honest conversation about whatever their concerns are, right? Which could be financial, they can be personal, and that all being wrapped up. And just being relieved and being able to talk to somebody about it. I think the second thing is someone finally giving them that overview, that kind of 30,000 feet, this is how things go. And all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. It's like, oh, yeah, like this is what's going on. And then I think the third thing is sometimes finding out that you don't need to, even if you're working with an advisor you like, that you don't need to take on board every suggestion they have. And that you
Yes.
don't have to do everything just because they're recommending it. Just having someone say, that's fine, they're recommending it. You don't have to do it, like you don't have to buy that thing that they're selling or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So those
Reflect.
are things, yeah, that were kind of that time to reflect and to understand that it can all just be slow and calm, and this is how investing really should be.
Yeah. And just to cool your mind on that, you feel like it's out of your depth, like it is your depth, it's your money. You can just take your time until you're
You
feeling
feel
balanced.
comfortable.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because I mean, some people will stay with their advisor longer than they stay with their spouse, or longer than they stay in other relationships. So I think that you get this relationship right if you want to hire somebody is very important, and that it's a honest and trustworthy relationship. Right.
Yeah. I think that's good. I mean, I think, we're always open to people writing to us, right? I mean, you said you could talk
Yeah.
about it for 3 days. People might have really
Literally.
specific questions.
Yeah.
And if people do have questions, they can always write to us and see if, there's something that we could answer, or we could ask you to answer.
Yes. I'd happily go through every question related to this because I think it's incredibly important. I think it's confusing for people.
Yeah.
And I think the more information just makes it more confusing. And I think people don't realize they can keep things very simple and they don't have to be complicated. That's actually the better way to go about this. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by, I think I open my mailbox, I've got 30 things a day from both my email box and my mailbox from different people trying to sell me on something. So I do appreciate how hard it can be to shut out the noise. Yeah.
Yes, but we can. All right.
Okay.
I think that's it for today. And then we'll come back with a few more podcasts in the future with some experts, and we'll post when those podcasts are ready. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Ciao.